Hey, it's Annie. Welcome to Finding Annie Surviving Narcissism and Abuse. On today's episode, I am joined by the beautiful Michele Vrabel. Michelle has or is the author of Butterfly Stitches, which is an absolutely amazing book on her journey of basically covering all areas of abuse that she has experienced throughout her life. Please welcome me in joining Michelle to the show. Michelle, welcome. Thank you
Thank you.
so much. It's just absolutely beautiful to have you. Can you share with everybody your story with us today and also tell us about your book, Butterfly Stitches?
Okay. Well, I'm 62, so my story could be really long. So I'll kind of like make it succinct in the sense that we're relating the healing journey into the story of my book, Butterfly Stitches, The Metamorphosis of Healing, and maybe starting with why that title. I don't know if most people know what a butterfly stitch is, and with this being audio, but you can go to Amazon and get my book, and you'll see that on the cover I have a butterfly stitch on my above my eye, and a butterfly stitch in medical vernacular is used when a wound or a cut is too shallow for regular stitches. Now, what happens though is that it will take longer to heal because all it's using is this little band-aid, if you will, a butterfly stitch to hold it together. And you have to play a part in it not getting infected, staying cleaned, and replacing those butterfly stitches. Where with regular stitches, they go in, they put them in, and you go back a week or two later and have them cut out. So that's how our healing journey runs too. We aren't going to heal in the blink of an eye. It's a process, it's a journey, and a butterfly stitch, if you will, over a wound to our heart, our soul, our mind, or our body is going to require that we get in the game. It's not going to just completely heal by itself. We have to participate, and that's exactly why a butterfly stitch. And so my story starts from when I was born all the way through my divorce, which will be in my second book called Out Loud: The Sound of Healing, is one, yes, of a lot of abuse, a lot of trauma, not some physical, some sexual, a lot emotional and mental, mind games and manipulation and lying. And I am a woman of faith. I have a faith worldview, and I believe truly that we were created in a manner that our brain is fully intact, our heart, our soul, our body, all intact when we're born. So every time we have an experience, our good or bad, we analyze that. We kind of, take it in and go, well, that was good. Like say when mommy gives you your first ice cream or something like that. Ooh, that was a good experience. We kind of take that emotion in and we process it and move forward. Okay, we know we're going to want to pick that again. But when something bad happens, it depends on who's delivering it or how it happens. Like when we're little, if we were to touch a hot stove, we would learn very quickly we don't want to do that again. But when someone you love is the perpetrator of the pain or the wound, it brings a new dimension to it. But our brain and our little soul and our little hearts are all still intact to take that information and maybe not have the words adults have, like evil or, whatever it might be, or understanding the term abuse. But I knew at 2 years old that when my dad gave me one of the worst beatings of my life, that he wasn't being good. I had at 2 years old had a little swat on the bottom, so I knew when you're not good, somebody's supposed to spank you. He wasn't being good, and so I could take that information, and then with each passing wound or beating or whatever happened to me, I believe that I was created in a manner and also have the Holy Spirit guidance to start reasoning that out then. Now, it's interesting because I was asked today, about, about my healing process. And I just truly believe that I've never seen a counselor until I went to marriage counseling. I've never had a doctor look me over for the things that happened to me. And yet I didn't head off the rails too bad. I mean, I did make some bad decisions over a course of probably 10 years, decisions that you find a lot of people in their 20s making. And I'm not using that as an excuse. I'm just saying I wasn't as derailed as it can feel like you would be sometimes. And I think it's because I was connected in some way to the healing process beginning, having some logical reason for why what happened to me happened to me. For example, my father beat me and my siblings and my mom. Why did he do that? Now, people think when I come up with a why, I'm making excuses for him. And I'm like, I'm not. It's just I'm a logic person, so I want to know the reason. Well, he was beaten very badly by his father, and so was his siblings. So with all the generational sin, as we'd call it as a Christian or somebody with a faith worldview, when does the cycle get broken? And he could have, but he didn't. And I don't know what that says about him. It's not my place to judge. I just know that my siblings and I made the choice not to continue that. And I don't believe that that was something that I 100% came up with or created on my own. If I did not receive the love I've received from my Creator, if I did not have some of the processes, to kind of reason out what was happening and know that not every human being was going to act like that, I don't think I could have come to those conclusions. I don't think I could have come to the place to forgive my father, whether he asked for it or not, which he did not. So my journey, yes, involved a lot of abuse, a lot of trauma. At the same token, that's not who I am. I'm not a victim. I was a victim of some things, but I'm very much a victor. But now, is it something I have to claim every day? Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm, after my divorce, which was another horrific span of stuff, trying to go out and date. Oh my goodness, that's just crazy. But I could look at every man across the table from me and really, just dump a truckload of dreck on him. But I don't, because I don't believe for a second every single man is going to do to me what every single man has done to me. And I don't think, that I am free from not doing some of those things. Every one of us, I believe, was born with a sin nature. We have free will. We could make some of these poor choices. I could have cheated on my husband. I didn't, but you know what I mean? All of that is there. And I am not prepared to judge someone because that's not my job. My job, I'm called to love my neighbor as myself. Now, does that mean I want to go camping with my ex-husband? No. But I have forgiven him because I don't want to carry that around. And as part of my journey, that's just another component of it, is that we're never going to heal if we don't forgive, including ourselves.
Yeah. And it's such a big thing. And I really do love how you just said regarding forgiveness, that you no longer want to carry that around. And that's exactly what, to me, forgiveness is. It's not saying that what this person has done is okay, because it's not okay. But it's just that you've made this choice to go, you know what? I don't want to carry around the bitterness, the anger, the resentment, the shame, the guilt, and all of that with me anymore. So, I'm just going to drop this down now because, I can. And like you said, you don't have to go camping with your husband, because you don't. You can just be like, I forgive you. I love you from afar. Yep. Thanks for the journey, but you go your way and I'll go my way. So, thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. So
I don't have, I have felt the burden and the weight of unforgiveness. And funnily enough, not for any of my abusers, but for myself. Mm-hmm. As I say in my book, I've done multiple things that devastated me for a long time in life. And I cover in the sequel about some of the release and some of the deep, surgical healing that I go through, because people act very flippant and I don't want to get controversial, and this isn't political, but I did get pregnant from my first sexual experience, and then I had an abortion, and some people act like it's just no big deal. Like it's a lovely form of birth control. You just go have this and it's no big deal. And not being religious or, any of that. It wasn't that. You physically and emotionally, people are lying to themselves that they aren't traumatized by that act too. But then as a person of faith, I realized for me that I murdered my child. And people can get up in roars about that, but that is the truth. And so I can't sit in some judgment and not forgive others. And then I also have to stop and forgive myself that I too have the right to the redemption that I'm offered.
Absolutely. And I think, if anything, forgiving yourself is the most challenging things ever, because we are the most hardest on ourselves, and we really do berate ourselves for a lot of the time, for a lot of the things and for a lot of the choices that we've made. And so, forgiving yourself is truly, it's very challenging, but it's really great that you speak about that. And it's great that you acknowledge that, you have made choices in your life that, that you look back now and go, well, it probably wasn't the greatest thing, but it is what it is. And I did what I did at that particular time and space for the situation that you were in. And you were quite young when that took place for you too. So I do recall reading that section in your book about that. That was pretty, like, even me reading that was looking at that going, oh, you were so manipulated and taken advantage of at that particular point in time. So to me, it felt like you were really like a deer in the headlights during that situation.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I don't make excuses because I did, agree to what was going on, but did I understand completely what was going on? No, not at all. And back then, Roe v. Wade had probably only been in existence a year or so. So there weren't people standing outside the clinics, with the protesting or what have you, or anybody standing there ready to give you like an ultrasound to explain what was going on or anything, nothing. So I was ill-informed for sure. But people need to understand that it's not as easy as flipping on a light switch like everybody likes to act. There's a very real emotional repercussions for what happens, and I just pray that no one else has to go through that. But we all know that I think it's like in the United States anyway, like 8 million a year, which is disheartening because I just feel like if it is kind of just your form of birth control, and again, I don't want to veer off on that. Yeah. I'm just saying, emotionally, there is a price, and that's what I paid. And so I carried that for my daughter was maybe a year or two old, and I had stood over her crib not thinking that God would take her, but thinking, did I perpetuate a generational curse by doing what I had done? And was I going to lose her as part of the consequence? It was irrational, which a lot of emotions are. And the Lord gave me peace about it. And I was able to walk through that. And then I found this amazing Bible study group that she was I don't know if she was a psychologist. I forget what her actual title was, but her ministry was working with women who had been through an abortion and just had not processed it. We're having angst in life with it. And man, she and we had to battle a little bit because there was, our last assignment was to write a letter to ourselves. Yeah. And in it, at some point, we had to forgive ourselves, but we also had to, she gave us several points we had to cover. And I got up and walked out of that meeting and told her I wasn't going to do that assignment. And it was my grandma used to have this saying when we would do something naughty or whatever, she'd be like, I'm going to jerk a knot in your tail. And I believe that my Jesus jerked a knot in my tail that night. I was not able to fall asleep. I was mad at her. I was mad at him. I was mad at myself. And eventually I did write it and went to the group, and we were going to read them out loud. And then we were going to have this little ceremony where we released balloons and what have you. And I did go there and I did read it. And man, that was hard. It felt like having a tumor removed without anesthesia.
Yeah.
But it was just another
challenging.
component of my healing journey because that had come along with me so long and I had not talked to anybody about it.
Yeah. And look at you go. And how good do you feel now that you've released all of that?
Oh, oh. I mean, that night, I seriously, I slept for like 2 days straight after that meeting, that when I finally was obedient and did work the process. And I couldn't believe it. It was phenomenal. This woman, I to this day have in the area where I keep like my daughter's scrapbooks and stuff like that, I have the material from that because it meant so much to me. I don't have it in me to like throw it out or something. I mean, it just was an awesome journey for me.
Yeah, that is honestly so super cool. And I think, again, it's challenging, but I think it's just so important for people to really understand, again, surrounding the whole forgiveness thing. It's not what the person has done or the people have done. It's just you releasing yourself and letting yourself off the hook, because we all make choices and decisions at particular points and times in our lives, and it ends up putting us on these journeys, good, bad, or otherwise. But yeah, it's just, we're all human. We're all here having a human experience. And the other thing I also wanted to, because I was reading your book, and what I really also really loved about your book, especially when you were a young child, was just how incredibly aware and astute that you really were. Because throughout your book, with everything that had gone on in your story, you were really able to, which you did mention just previously when we first started this podcast, of just how aware you were that as much as, for say, what your father had done, you knew that it wasn't him, so to speak. Like, it was him, but you knew that there was more to the story, and you knew that it wasn't you. And I just think that that is just an amazing insight to have at such a young age.
I think honestly, again, I'm a woman of faith, and people think that you start a relationship with God when you have a salvation experience, if you will. But I believe that the Holy Spirit, I believe that He is there from the jump. Okay, they were there at creation and before time. So I do believe that we are given that comfort and that counseling from the beginning. And people get frustrated and upset, and they're like, well, if you have so much faith, why didn't Jesus intercede and stop these things from happening to you? And there can be the churchy answer of how everybody has free will, and He's not interceding and forcing us to love Him, and He's not stopping other people from making whatever decision they choose to make either, which is very true. At the same token, I don't think that we are abandoned in that. I think that while He's not going to intercede on each of our free will choices, I don't think He leaves us or doesn't leave us a comforter if we are seeking that out in the midst of what is happening as well. So that is, I again, just the idea that I guess the science is that we're lucky if we use maybe, let's say 10%, and that's probably generous, of our brain. So I think we can tap in to a form of reasoning and a form of understanding. They talk about how babies can self-soothe when they're little. You know what I mean? So I think we can take any emotion, any thoughts, any moral dilemmas, anything that's physically happening to us. And I think that we're designed to kind of start a self-healing process. So I've always felt that way. I just thought everybody felt that way. I don't think I'm any kind of smarty pants. I just think it's maybe sometimes seeing it, you know what I mean? Wanting to see that versus just seeing the awful thing that's happening to us.
Well, it's just I just find it so intriguing that because a lot of people, and I'm even thinking for myself here, that I would have absolutely have really berated myself over all of that because of just who I was. But you just had this amazing insight. And honestly, it's just that was probably the one thing that I noticed, like reading your book. It was like this theme of your childhood of how insightful, astute that you truly are. Because I was like, this I honestly don't think that I would have been like that at all. So I think that is just an absolute testament to you as just to a part of it's an amazing characteristic or an amazing quality to have, especially being so aware at such a young age.
Oh, you're so sweet. I
Yeah,
think that certainly the circumstances we go through probably, develop that. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And I think, if somebody hasn't walked my journey, they may or may not have similar characteristics, but you're right. I think that's why we go through what we go through. If we don't grow and we don't learn and we don't adapt, that could be devastating, I think. And I could see why some people may struggle if it's easier, and it can be easier to say, poor me, this stuff is happening to me. I'm just not going to try, or I'm not going to, you know, make lemonade out of this, the lemons I've been handed. But I appreciate that. I do believe that is, I don't know if we call it a gift of the spirit, but or something that was the linchpin for me being able to heal or be sitting here upright with joy and know what I know about how I believe my healing journey has gone.
yeah. And the other thing is too, like you mentioned earlier about with your siblings that, you know, all three of you have made this conscious decision not to have a home environment like you grew up in.
Absolutely.
And I think that is absolutely something also to be commended, because there are a lot of times where people, and I guess your father is a great example here in the sense of he's ended up recreating what he had grown up with. And I know they can say, well, you don't know any different because that's exactly how you were raised. And I understand that too. But on the same token, there are also choices that can be made that you do not have to put yourself through that, or also put others through that because you've experienced that yourself. So it's interesting how, in decisions and choices that people make, that they either head down predominantly that same sort of path, and they can do, and especially out of the three of you, each one of you could have absolutely chosen just to, because that's what you knew, is following those footsteps. But you haven't. You've all
Yeah.
gone, you know what? And you've absolutely broken that cycle, which is an amazing, brave, courageous thing to do.
It was, I like I said, I've told so many people that, like I said, there was no counselors, there were no doctors, like, because back then you didn't do that. You just,
Yeah.
everybody hushed up what went on. And yeah, it probably is a God thing, a miraculous thing that out of all of us, because typically there may be one that falls a
Yeah.
different, like my father's brother was beaten with the same ferocity, and he did not. In fact, he
Mm.
came to our rescue on multiple occasions. So it is it is what I would call a divine appointment that the three of us came out. And I'm not saying we're unscathed by any stretch of the imagination, but yes, not choosing, being able to see that, wow, just because you were beaten and you hated it and it was horrible, why on earth would you think doing that to another human being rectifies the situation for you at all? I mean, it never occurred to me. In fact, I was on another podcast this morning, and I was telling her that the first time I had to spank my daughter, and I think she's had 2 spankings her whole life, and she's 24 now, so it was when she was little. And I think she was 5 or 6 years old, and she was just being ornery. And you don't give a spanking because you're going to beat someone. You're not trying to hurt them. You're trying to gather their attention, okay? So anyway, and then people can argue or send me emails after they listen to your podcast. But I've been beaten and I've been spanked, and I know the difference. And I deserved every spanking I got because I knew what I did. Anyway, she was in her room. I had to go in and I had to do the spanking. My husband at the time was here, but it was my beef with her.
Yeah.
So I went in, did what I had to do, left her there. I don't think she cried very long, and it was pretty funny because she's an only child and loves to be in her room by herself. So I to be honest with you, I think she went on about her day, and then when it was dinner time, it was like nothing happened, but she did not continue the bad behavior. But anyway, I came out in the living room after I did it, and I was sobbing.
Yeah.
I was like, and and he had to keep telling me, my husband, you didn't beat her. This is, I heard you. In fact, I even had taken the advice of a dear friend, and I prayed with her beforehand, and I told her, I want you to understand why mommy's doing this, that this is not something, she wants to do, blah, 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 whatever. Anyway, it was... So I don't even want to do that. And you don't want to swing the other way and be this, crazy parent that doesn't have any rules or structure. But yeah, we definitely, my older brother will admit that he struggles with forgiveness. He hasn't found that yet for our father. And he does have anger issues sometimes. And you can just kind of feel it kind of a low level a lot of the time. But overarching, the breaking of the chain has definitely been done, and that's a God thing.
Yeah, and I think it's absolutely wonderful that you've done that. And again, being guided, but you also have that choice too. And you guys have been very conscious of doing that. What are some things, like what are some tips now that perhaps that you could share with others that have really helped you on your journey?
Well, probably the first best one, especially now that I've written a book, is the actual saying of it. Now, that freaks a lot of people out. They're afraid to say it out loud. They're afraid to write it down because maybe the perpetrators are still alive or they don't want somebody to know. So that can be terrifying, and I get it. I didn't have a problem with that. I didn't care if they knew or not. I did not write my book. I had somebody say this to me. They thought I wrote it to humiliate my dad. And I was kind of torn in the conversation. I was kind of stunned. And I laugh a lot when I'm in an awkward situation or something. But I was like, first of all, humiliating him wouldn't even cover what he did to me. So that didn't even enter my mind. And this book, in a way, has nothing to do with him. This has to do with me. He was may have been the abuser, but I'm not doing, and I didn't even call out every circumstance. I did what the Lord told me to do. It's my story. I think I gave some poignant examples that may help people understand what I've been through and now how I'm healing from it. And that's all that was necessary. So I would honestly say the first best thing that somebody could do is, when I got called to write this, I believed it was going to be just for me. So I didn't have a problem. I did what some people call a vomit draft. I just got it on paper. You're not supposed to stop and correct your grammar. Don't stop and correct your sentence structure. Don't edit and leave out the truth because you think that Uncle Joe might somehow get a copy if you were to die and he was the one that did this to you. Just get it out. You can burn it immediately if you want to, or do whatever you need to do. But I think that step alone, if it then ends up becoming a book for you or something that for your family so they can understand you broke the cycle or whatever, yay. But right out of the gate, the best healing part of this entire journey was me just finally saying it out loud, because I had said it to no one. I can tell you that my ex-husband doesn't know the whole story. My brothers did not know the whole story. They knew the story as it, crossed with them. And it was, again, like I said, that tumor that I felt had been removed with the other study I did. This had to be the biggest step. And all the steps after that in healing were a lot smaller, for sure. They took time. They were smaller. I had to work through, the lens that I kept putting on to look at the world. My body, thankfully, did not retain anything from the sexual abuse or the physical abuse of my childhood. Nobody after that, beat me or anything. It was all after that. It was mental and emotional manipulation and things like that. But it's interesting to me. I think a physical wound to myself, even though it might have a scar, would not be doing the damage to me through this part of my life that the stuff that got inside my head that I couldn't get out. I mean, you start believing. There's a line that Julia Roberts says in Pretty Women when Richard Gere asks her, why did, she could have been so much more, why did you do this and, choose being a hooker? And she's like, the bad stuff is easier to believe.
Yeah.
And my father definitely said plenty of that. And so vomit draft, get your story out. Now we know what we're dealing with. Because how can you heal from an experience and how can you forgive if you haven't even stated who did, you know what I mean? If we haven't even clarified
Absolutely.
the situation.
Yeah.
So I think doing that leads way easier to now where we can forgive. So I think getting the story out loud, getting it written down, and then being able to sort through exactly, specifically what left the mark, what made the wound. And you don't, if you have cancer, you're going to treat that different than a broken leg. So let's do some triage. That might be the way to say it. Let's do a little triage.
And it's so important. And I love that, because it really is. I think that is the biggest thing, is about sharing your story, is just getting it out, because it's bigger than us, like, because it is. Yes, this has happened, and I'm with you. I mean, I do this podcast, and I've started this podcast. It's bigger than me. It's bigger than what I've been through. It's more because, you know what, this stuff is going on, and people are now talking about it, because we're no longer in a society where we're sweeping that under the carpet and like,
No.
oh, this is taboo, we can't talk about this. It is important to talk about it. And the other thing is, and I think, when we have conversations like this and when we have stories like this, if the people who have done or who have treated you poorly listen to this, or they read your book, then I hope that they take that on board, that they actually go and get the help that they need, because they too are hurting. They too have got whatever has been going on for them that needs to be addressed, and that really needs to be looked at. And I think if they can even take this, or one person can just take this and go and heal and feel better about themselves and let go of all of this stuff, then what an amazing world this really would be, because everything's out in the open, and we're talking about this stuff and we're helping each other. That's the beauty in all of it.
Yeah, and if the thing is too, because I had somebody ask me a question about whether or not my stepfather's brother who molested me did it again. I know he was doing it to two other cousins. Excuse me, I swallowed the wrong way. But did he go on to do this to others? And I know that's probably one of the most terrifying things to people who want to hear, who maybe could read my book. I've had people walk up to me and tell me that just by looking at the cover, they knew I knew what they were going through and that they needed to read it and they wanted to hear my story. And I'm like, but they don't want to say theirs out loud. They burst into tears. They get very uncomfortable. But if they understood, like you said, not to go after them, not to get vengeance, no, but that person, maybe if you spoke up, if it's happening right now, you're going to save somebody else, number one, from going through what you're going through. And number two, yes, maybe that person can, not let off the hook for what they did to you, but we can understand more, okay, hurt people hurt people.
Yes.
And so if we can understand a little bit more, and for their sake,
Yes.
I would like to believe that somewhere inside, they're not, that there isn't like joy that they receive for doing this to other people. I don't know. I don't know what to say. Because I have my own evil that I've had to deal with or that I've chosen. So I just don't believe that that's my gift to judge. It's not my place. I'm called to love others as myself. And, it doesn't mean that you have to, as I joked earlier, go camping with them or spend a holidays with them. But man, just knowing that you can say it out loud, you can release that, you can release the forgiveness finally to yourself and to others. Those are the two biggest components to healing. Otherwise, you're still in a ball and you're still carrying around, the poison inside you. The old story that if you carry around bitterness, it's like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. It's just horrible. It eats away at you, and it physically will eat away at you.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. Because the body does keep the score. And
Yes,
that's
it
why
does.
it's so important. And I absolutely say that with all my clients that I work with. Really important to release all the shame, all the guilt, all the anger, doing various exercises because, if we hang on to that, then this is where, such diseases come out in the sense of cancer and stuff like that. So it really is important. And of course, the biggest thing too is not only forgiving that other person, but it really is important to forgive yourself. So, and I know for me, that was the hardest thing for me. It was actually easier to forgive the other person than what it was to even forgive myself. So, yeah. It's really, really important. Thank you so much for sharing your story because I've really enjoyed reading Butterfly Stitches and,
Oh, you're so sweet.
getting through and reading your book. And there were so many times I was just like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. But I think it's amazing and wonderful that you have absolutely shared that. And what I will do with the podcast is I will also put the links in there so people can go and purchase your book. So they've got access to that. So I will definitely do that. The other thing is that you do have a sequel coming out, which I'm so excited for. I'm really looking forward to reading that because I will absolutely have you back on to talk about that journey for you. When are we expecting that? We've got a rough idea.
My hope is that by the summer, no later than the summer. I kind of came hot out of the gate and said, oh, it's going to be May of 25. And the processes for self-publishing a book are going to be a little time limiting on that. But then you have to look at, I don't even know what to call it, like the publishing industry or the book release, that there are time frames in the year that if you do that, nobody's going to see your stuff because that just doesn't happen to be how the process works. So if the summer is a bad time for that to come out on Amazon and the places it's supposed to, I may actually hold it off until like September. But my goal is to have it fully edited and ready to rock and roll by the summer. So by June-ish.
All right. Well, I will keep everybody posted, but I am so looking forward to that. I really am.
Thank you.
Michelle, thank you so, so much for being on this podcast with me. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It is an incredible story. What an absolute journey that you have been through, and also your siblings and loved ones as well. So I just really, really appreciate your story, taking the time, to join me today. I absolutely do. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and thank you for reaching out and for the opportunity. And I'd gladly come back. In fact, maybe I can even be in Australia for the next episode.
Now, I would love that. Absolutely. I would definitely love that. All right, everybody. I just want to say thank you so much for listening to our podcast today. Thank you for joining me. Honestly, go and grab a copy of Michelle's book, Butterfly Stitches, because she truly is inspiring, especially after the journey that she has been on. And if you're ever doubting and thinking that perhaps that you do not have the strength or the courage to get over what you are going through, read Michelle's book, because she will absolutely inspire you to take the necessary steps to help you on your journey. So take care of you, everybody, and thank you once again for listening. Much love.